You're listening to A Seat at the Tech Table, a podcast by Sisters in Tech, hosted by Anna and Esther Kofariji. This podcast highlights the experiences of Black women working and thriving in the tech industry. You'll learn about how they found their path into tech, and hopefully you'll be inspired to consider whether there's a seat for you at the tech table. Today's guest is Ezim Amaka, a London-based talent acquisition partner. Hey, welcome to A Seat at the Tech Table. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Hey everyone, thank you for having me, guys. I am Ezim Amaka and I am currently a talent acquisition partner at LinkedIn. I'm Nigerian, but I've grown up in the UK for most of my life.
Cool, thank you so much. Okay, so one of the things that we're really interested in showing people is that there isn't just one route into tech. So we'd love to learn a little bit about your background. What did you study? What were your interests kind of in school at the beginning?
Love it. So yeah, I never thought about tech. I actually thought I was going to be a hairdresser. My parents said, why would you do something that you currently do? So I was already doing people's hair in my parents' house. And then I wanted to do fashion design and my parents said, no, why would you do something that you already do? So I already, draw patterns, pattern cut, make clothes. So eventually it was like, oh my gosh, I wanted to do something that I was still passionate about. And then I think after crying loads, my brother then said, you know what, why don't you mix it with business studies? And then maybe they'd understand it better. So I was like, okay, so this was during my A-levels, because obviously you have to pick your A-levels before you actually get, so that those A-levels then count towards what you want to do at uni and the grades and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, cool. So I ended up picking business studies, sociology and textiles. So that's where I did fashion stuff for my A-levels, and my parents gave in at that point. They thought I was going to school to do business, and so that for them sat a lot better than me going to study fashion or hairdressing or anything like that. So for me, I was just happy. I was happy I could still do my fashion stuff. So then the battle came when it came to university. So my dad then said, you can only go to unis within a certain radius of our house. So I was like, okay, well, that knocks out all the really great fashion universities I wanted to go to, apart from London College of Fashion. So I was like, okay, cool. So I started looking at what universities are close that kind of mix fashion and business. So I applied to all of those universities, and then I ended up going to Oxford Brookes, and I did retail and business management. And within that, there was quite a few fashion focused courses, but not so many. So it ended up being much more, I'd say maybe about 75% business related. So yeah, that was my early life. And I don't regret it. I think my parents knew, I guess they knew where I would be at some point in my life, and they wanted me to really think about the bigger picture. So yeah.
Cool. Okay, so that's really, really interesting, like knowing that you've come from that background. Tell us a little bit about what happened after university and the subsequent years. So what kind of work did you do?
Yeah, so I think one of the things was, whilst I was at uni, I worked in Selfridges in the summer. And then that's when I really thought, okay, I know I don't want to work kind of shop floor for the rest of my life. And so one of the managers actually had really good contacts in head office. And I don't even know how the conversation came up. I think I was just talking to him about wanting to go into fashion buying. So again, I was still like, I'm going into fashion. My parents just don't know it yet. and so I said to him, like, could you like drop a message to the buying team at head office and just see if they would, like, if I could just come and work for free. At this point, I was just like, I just wanted the internship. And the second summer I came back to work in Selfridges, he actually messaged them after like my first week of being back. And one of them, which was the main Kurt Geiger brand. So if you know Kurt Geiger, it's got quite a few small brands within the fashion house. So, but the main Kurt Geiger brand buyer came back to him and said, yeah, we'd love to have some extra support. So I basically like quit my job at Selfridges, working for Kurt Geiger, and then went into their head office and then spent about 2.5 months just as a buyer's admin assistant. Loved it, got lots of free shoes, and did lots of things. Obviously, it's quite admin heavy. Lots of reporting, lots of liaising with suppliers, but I loved it. Like, I wanted to be in fashion, and it gave me a real insight into what it's like, the people that actually make the choices, decide on the designs, buy all the products, the road shows, the photo shoots. Like, you just saw it from so many different angles. So yeah, that was that initially. And then I think just post university, I'd applied to fashion buying sort of roles. So I applied to Arcadia, applied to Amazon, applied to loads, and I just didn't get the opportunity at that time. Obviously, it was very high. It was a role that was, high in popularity. So that didn't set me completely. That didn't put me off completely. I then decided, okay, like, what else do I like to do? And I knew that I really liked people. I liked engaging with people. I liked talking to people. I loved the career conversations I was having when I was trying to figure out my career. And I remember talking to a recruiter, and they said to me, well, why don't you go into recruitment? So I was like, oh, okay. Okay, like I just was like, fine, why not try it? So they sent me a couple of roles. I started looking at a couple of roles. I knew I wanted to move back home at least for like a year or two, just kind of stabilize myself, maybe save up a little bit before I then moved out again. So I then applied for a role that was really close to my family, like a 8-minute drive away. Went to all the interviews and then got the job. So I had a job just before I finished university, and then started within like 2 weeks of moving back home. Nice. And then stayed there for about 2 years. Yeah, so that's how I got into HR, talent acquisition, recruitment, all of that.
Okay, I want to jump back a bit because I think you said something really interesting when you spoke about how you were in Selfridges and basically a conversation with your, what was it, your kind of the manager is what opened up opportunities with you. And I think that's really important because a lot of people have a desire to maybe go into a certain field or do something slightly different, but they never tell anyone. And so I was just wondering if you could speak to the importance of kind of making your intentions known and sharing with other people what it is that you want to do.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, what have you got to lose? You don't have what you want to do just yet, right? So by sharing it with people and letting them know your intentions are, what your skills are, X, Y, Z, they can help if they can. If they can't help, that's fine. But say they're in a conversation with somebody else who's like, oh, I'm looking to maybe open up an opportunity for an intern. You're going to be in that person's mind already. And so in that conversation, they're going to be saying to that person, oh, I know someone who might be interested, So I think it's really key. And, I'll talk about it in other parts of my career, but that's what I've always done throughout my career. If there's something I know that I want, I ask, I talk to people, I see if they've got the right people in their network. If they do, and I'm able to make that right connection, then it plays to my advantage. If I don't ask, I'm never going to get. So I think that's kind of my motto with things like that.
Totally agree. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Cool. So we're going to transition now. You've spoken about kind of your early career and how you entered into the kind of the HR, the talent space. And now we want to have a look at kind of coming into tech. I think one of the things that is a barrier to some people accessing careers in tech is kind of a slight level of intimidation about the process, maybe the job application. So could you tell us a bit about how you entered kind of the tech industry and how you got your job in tech?
I think maybe if I talk about my role currently at LinkedIn, I think that is very much a tech company. My previous role was also a tech company as well, smaller size. But again, at LinkedIn, it actually came down to my network. That's how I got my job at LinkedIn. I had met somebody like 5 years ago. I hadn't met with them since that time, but at the point that I met them, we talked, we kind of bantered with each other, we kind of built a bit of a rapport, and exchanged LinkedIn details, connected on LinkedIn. And then every now and again, as I went into a previous role, I tried to poach him from his company. He's tried to poach me a few times, and it just wasn't quite the right role for either of us at the time. So it was quite funny, but at the same time, it just showed that we had built enough rapport to actually think that this person could be good to join a team that I'm in or refer them to another company. So when he joined LinkedIn, I said congratulations and all of that, and didn't think anything else of it. And I wasn't even looking at the time that he contacted me. So just out of the blue, he messaged me and was like, hey, are you open to new opportunities? He'd sent me a couple of others, and I was like, maybe not. And then he eventually told me, okay, there's an opportunity at LinkedIn to join the team that he's in. So I was like, oh, okay. And actually, at first, I turned it down. I didn't have the job offer to turn it down, just his approach. I said, you know what, I'm not sure that this is the right time for me. I wasn't looking, period. And so with that in mind, then eventually he was like, you know what, just come in, let's have breakfast, because at LinkedIn we got free breakfast, and we'll just chat about it, nothing formal. It wasn't an interview. So reluctantly I was like, okay, cool. And then that kind of spiraled. I finished breakfast. He was like, oh, come and meet my team. So, team. And then it was like, oh, I spoke to my manager about you and he'd love to meet you. So I then had coffee with his manager. So it was one of those. And I think sometimes, I tell that story to say, the thing with tech is that it's really not that scary. The people are just like us, in all honesty. The people I've met are just like myself. The process can vary as it would do in any organization. I only had probably, I'd say, one proper interview. The other interviews were casual enough, really honest with you. And again, that's the thing with tech companies. They are a bit more casual in their approach, I would say, from experience. Initially, they'll have the coffee meetings, or they'll just try to gauge your cultural fit. And then, once you enter the official process, then you will have proper first stage interview. You'll have a panel interview where they'll give you a task ahead of time to prep for, and that sort of thing. So, but having worked in pharmaceutical industry, the broadcast industry, earned media and tech, there's no difference in the approach when it comes to interviewing people. So what I would say is definitely cast away some of those preconceived notions about tech. It's actually a really fun environment. So if you're somebody that's personable, you like to engage with people, you're an ideas person, you're an innovator, then you just bring that to the table whenever you're talking to somebody in the tech industry, and then see where it goes.
Yeah, and I think slightly to that point, obviously, kind of the way yours happened was very informal, and it's always great if you know someone maybe that works at a company and things like that. It obviously kind of gives you that social entry point. But I think about people who, for one reason or another, they don't necessarily have a contact that works in a company, for example, a social media or a tech company. How would you advise such people to go about making those social connections so that they can kind of start to have those conversations?
Definitely. I'll go back to maybe an example at when I was at ITV and when I was at Cision as well. So before I actually applied for the role at ITV, I found a couple of people that were in the team I wanted to join, and I messaged them on LinkedIn. And I think it's a bold move, but they either respond and they give you some advice, and maybe when you then apply, you're top of mind for them because there's someone that's interacted. They know that you've interacted with them a little bit and gone that extra mile. If they don't respond, they still keep you top of mind, but they just have maybe a policy of just not responding for whatever reason. So that's what I did before I got my job at ITV, and actually the person I ended up approaching turned out to be the hiring manager for the role, and so that really helped. And I had no clue, like there was no introduction. This was just purely me searching on LinkedIn, finding who that was, and just contacting them on a complete whim, and been crossing my fingers to see what would happen. And then when I applied, and I was interested in a role at Cision before I joined, I messaged the person on LinkedIn. I could see who the recruiter was, so I messaged them and just kind of flagged my interest in the role. I'd also, in my previous role, we'd used one of the products that the company sold before, so I already knew that it was a really great company to join. So then the person came back to me and I sent my application through. We had the conversations and then I joined the official interview process. So honestly, your network is so important, but if you don't have that network, like start to network with people, start to connect with people that are interesting in the industries that you want to work in, and utilize that connection. So don't just have them there for the sake of, I've got 500 connections. Like that's meaningless in your career, in all honesty. Like if you haven't got a reason to connect with them at the moment, if they're sharing content on whatever platform it is, so say for instance on LinkedIn, they're sharing posts, they're sharing blogs, XYZ, like, share, comment on it, because it does bring you up in, oh, okay, this person's engaging with me, this person's always liking my post, sharing, commenting. It brings you to the forefront of their mind a little bit more. But even at that, if it's completely new, then just approach, just ask, and see what happens from there. So that's how I've always approached my job hunts. Even when I got my first job outside of uni, actually, before I moved home, I figured out, a couple of people that worked at the company, and then I emailed in. And I think I called in, actually. I was obviously very bold because so I called in, and then we had a conversation, and then we took it from there. So
that's like, I'm starting to see a bit of a trend in terms of your approach, which seems to be working. I think we'll move on a little bit, and it will just be good to know what you do. So you've mentioned that you are talent acquisition partner. Tell us about your current role and what you do on a day-to-day basis. For those who don't know, just give us a bit of a picture.
Yeah, so I'm currently the talent acquisition partner at LinkedIn for the Paris office. And so my key responsibility is hiring the best talent for our Paris office. So I don't look after any other regions apart from Paris, and I recruit everything in that office. So both commercial and operational roles. So that would include things like sales and marketing. It would include HR. It would include any sort of operational support functions as well. So it's a variety, but it is a small office. So it tends to be largely sales roles that I would recruit for in that office. In the office, it's all enterprise sales and commercial support to clients. So that's pretty much what I do in my role at the moment as a core. And then outside of that, it's then really just partnering with key stakeholders to really understand where they're trying to drive their talent acquisition strategy. So, we have a lot of focus on our DIBS strategy. So that's diversity, inclusion, and belonging. So we have like 3 key pillars, which is age, gender, and race. And so a lot of offices will really be, a lot of times really keen to make sure that we're considering all of those pillars within the recruitment process. I think we've definitely come a very long way with our gender balance. There's still ways, we still have a long way to go, but we're much closer than we were, say maybe 5 years ago. I think in terms of the strategy that we've been building up for the last year, even before kind of everything that's happening now, and was really focusing on the race aspect of things and trying to really improve the racial diversity in our different offices. And the one thing with LinkedIn is that because we're based in so many different countries, the racial diversity is very different in each country, so it does have to be really specific. So at the moment, it's really about working with the senior leadership and the hiring managers to understand firstly what's the diversity in the cities and the countries that I'm currently looking after, so in Paris, and then devising different ways that we can really engage with the community, increase the applications or proactive sourcing of candidates from those backgrounds, including them at the very beginning of the process, because if they're not there at the beginning, they're not going to be there at the end, right? So we need to make sure that we have a much more diverse slate of candidates at the beginning. So then as people go through the interview process, it's then down to their skills, their experience, X, Y, Z, and then we get to who we offer to. But if we don't have that at the beginning, then we're not really helping the situation. We're not really we're not moving the needle at all. So that's pretty much my role. It's very much sort of the talent acquisition part of it, and then supporting the business in driving the diversity agenda as well.
Okay. I'm quite interested in something you mentioned around getting a diverse pool of people at the very beginning of the journey. Could you speak up about the ways that you go about doing that?
So in the last maybe year, we've done a couple of things. So we've had events where we have partnered with Black organisations and diverse organisations that look at the wider sort of BAME population, and really collaborated with them on those events so that they can obviously promote it to the community, and then we're able to actually reach our audience and make sure that the audience is able to benefit from the event that we're doing. During the events, it's not just we're so good at LinkedIn. It's very much actually connecting you with members, with colleagues in LinkedIn, so that way you form those initial connections that you can come back to later on. Like I said, I connect with people who aren't in my current organizations, and if I'm looking for a career move, sometimes I touch base with them and I just say, hey, I'm actually going to be looking for my next career at some point. If you know anybody, or I've seen this person is connected to you, would you mind referring me in? So because you've made that initial touch point, it's a lot easier. And then also what we have found with one of the events that we did in October last year was that we were actually able to make 2 hires from it, and that was as a result of having somebody attend the event, meet with the hiring manager who was there on the day, build that connection, apply for the relevant role because they were able to have the discussion, understand what the role is, and make sure that it's the right role from their, based on their experience and their interest, and then go through the process. So we've hired 2 people at the moment from that particular event that we had. And then we've had follow-up events as well, where we've really supported those who've been impacted by COVID. So again, we worked with a Black charity, and we also worked with an organisation that supports Black professionals as well, and just working with them to do a Rock Your Profile session. It's a coaches session that we run on how to build your brand on LinkedIn to enable you to be found, whether it's for career opportunities, networking opportunities, support opportunities, but whatever it is, it just gives you a bit more exposure to the working world. And so we ran that session, and then following on from that, we did one-to-one coaching sessions. And then off the back of that, there was lots of referrals for people that had attended that session for roles that we had at the time. So I think it's things like that. It's very much about building that community partnership, actually going to where the racially diverse people are, whatever race it is that we're focusing on in the different countries, and working with them and looking at, okay, how can we give back, and how can we engage them in what we're doing. So that's a couple of things that we've done to really kind of build the brand and also build connections.
Cool. I just wanted to dig in on one thing that's quite interesting. Obviously, LinkedIn kind of it's a very big company, kind of a huge tech company, and tech companies, but all companies really have their own unique cultures. And I'd just love to know a bit about kind of the particular culture you've experienced at LinkedIn, and kind of more specifically how you feel kind of it's a good culture fit for you, and what your experience has been in that regard.
Yeah, I think the best way I can describe how LinkedIn is just, it's an environment that allows you to bring the most authentic you to the table. And I say that because in all of my 8 years of career at the moment, nearly 9, LinkedIn is the first company that I actually wore my natural hair out at. I remember before that I had like blonde ombre hair, and I always wore my wigs and my weaves and whatever, because I was like, okay, I just need one less thing for people to judge me by. People are already going to judge me by the color of my skin, my gender, how I speak, how I walk, whatever it is. I was like, one less thing will do me. So and then I remember like when just before I joined, I was like, do I, don't I? Because I knew however I started my journey was how I was going to continue. And I was already at that point where my boldness and my confidence and being able to stand confidently in who I am, I was already developing that in the background. And I felt like, okay, if I don't do this, I'm kind of taking myself way back in my journey. So I remember my manager at the time asked me to come for some drinks at the end of the day, or just to socialize with the team a little bit. And this was going to be the second time he's met me. So it's either I go looking the way he met me the first time, or I go looking like myself. And I toyed with myself the whole day. And I went to my old workplace without my wig on or anything, but I packed my wig in my bag because I was like, okay, if I don't go through with it, all I need to do is go to the toilet, put my wig on, and then we're good to go. And I was just like, you know what, no, this is me, you know, I've got the job. What's the worst they can do? What, like rescind the offer because I've come with my natural hair? Like, I just felt like, you know what, this is ridiculous. And so I left the wig in my bag, and I just walked up, and I could tell that, like, oh, this is a different person, but they still knew it was me. At the time, my LinkedIn picture was still how I looked before. So obviously you're looking for that person. But I had the best time the first time I met the team. Everyone was so lovely, so chatty. And I just thought, you know what? I felt like I'm home. I felt like I could be myself. And that continued on during my time at LinkedIn. I never felt like I had to hide who I am. If anything, they encouraged me to be more bold about it. Like, the events that we've done is ideas that I brought to the table, and some of them required financial support. And our country manager was like, yep. He signed it off. Obviously, you build your business case, but he signed it off, and he was behind it 100%. My manager was behind it 100%. So my passion for also giving back to my community and seeing more people that looked like me in the organization was something that the organization understood and they appreciated. And so they didn't try and stop that. And so in that sense, it also made me feel like, you know what, they get me here as well. Like, I don't need to just assimilate to the model of what people should look like at work, or the type of topics you can discuss or ideas you can bring to the table. Like, I could bring whatever to the table, and it was an open discussion. If it was a no, there was reason. If it was a yes, then we had action against it. So yes, I think I describe LinkedIn's culture as very, like, there's a lot of integrity in the culture. There's a lot of innovation, a lot of ideas. Relationships really matter at LinkedIn, and more than anything else, authentic relationships really matter at LinkedIn. So yeah, there's lots of ways I could describe it, but I've loved it. I've loved my time there. Yeah.
It's so good that you were able to kind of start as you meant to go on. So
Yeah.
you were able to kind of be your authentic self and bring yourself to kind of the start of your journey. I think that's really important because I think there's often conversations around how do you keep Black women, Black men in companies where there's a lot of white people there? How do they fit in? How can you assure them that they will be part of the culture? And I think it's reassuring to hear that you were able to kind of go in as yourself and be accepted. I think that's quite nice to hear from what you said.
Yeah, and I know it's not going to be the same for everybody, and I know that it's like people are still going through their journey. But I think for me, that point in time where I was like, what is the worst that could actually happen here? Like, okay, they rescind the offer, but would they really do that? Because I've rocked up in natural hair, you know? So I had to just really ask myself some of those questions and really think, you know, think about it. And then I was like, yeah, I'm just going to do it. Be a rebel for a little bit and then see what happens.
Be your true self. That's what you were doing. Yeah, that's amazing.
Exactly.
So, okay, we've heard quite a lot of positives around kind of working as a talent acquisition at LinkedIn. It would be good to just kind of have a good idea of some of the challenges you've experienced in this role in your career.
Yeah. I think when you work in HR and like in talent acquisition specifically, you're dealing with people. So it's a lot of the challenges are around that in a way. So, you know, you might have to, if you're offering somebody, they may still turn around and not accept it. And so you think you've closed a role, but actually this role is still open. You have to kind of remain personable. You have to remain approachable because people need to be able to talk to you and for you to be able to ascertain the right things from them in order to put them through the process. I don't know if I would say I've had specific challenges. I think if you're a person's person, so if you're personable and you enjoy engaging with different people, then that's cool. I think sometimes what I find is if I have a period of time where I'm doing loads of interviewing, quite often in the evenings, like I might have friends and family around me and I just don't want to talk to anybody because I've just been talking all day. So sometimes the challenge for me is staying engaged with, like during the week, especially with my loved ones, when I really just don't want to talk to anybody anymore because I've been talking to people and I've been dealing with people's problems or trying to drive people's careers and I just need quiet time instead of talking to more people. Whereas obviously there are some roles where you don't really talk to anyone at all or much in the day. And so you love that interaction at the end of the day and you've got all the energy for it. And so that's some of the challenges. Obviously, there's a lot of things around GDPR and KPIs and things like that. But I don't know. I don't think I've had too many challenges because I actually genuinely enjoy my job. I wouldn't really want to do anything else. So,
I guess based on what you've just said in terms of having to interact with people quite frequently, how would you say you find balance? So it sounds quite intense at times. You spoke about kind of being able to be quiet at times, but how exactly do you find balance?
Yeah, I actually really struggled with this because I would have literally back to back interviews the time. And so what I started to do is I block out a period of time in the morning, which is just for my emails. So I have an hour email time in the morning. I block out my lunch time. And I try as much as possible to switch off during that time. And, you know, maybe watch something or listen to something or read a book or just do something for me, go for a walk. And then I block out an hour, like the very last hour of the day, I block that out. So again, that's my admin hour. And so I know even if I don't have something to do to fill that whole hour, that's good. That's my downtime. So I either finish work a bit earlier and then I can breathe a little bit. Or, you know, at least at lunch times, I'm not then working over my lunch and then I'm exhausted by the end of the day. So that's what I've started to do. I've started to just block a lot of things out in my diary. Like if I've got projects, I block it out in my diary. If I've got things to do. If I like, my to-do list is in my diary. So if I say, oh, I need to contact this person, I'll put it in for 15 minutes in my diary. So again, people can't just come into my diary and put things in because they see it as free, because that free time is actually time I need to do something. It's just free. I haven't put that thing in there. So yeah, so my diary has 100% become like my best friend, my PA, everything. So keeping me sane. Yeah.
Love it. Okay. Seeing as you're a talent acquisition partner and kind of your whole role is about helping people to kind of find the right fit with respect to jobs, we'd love you to just give the listeners some advice around kind of do's and don'ts. And I think I literally feel like you could do a whole day session on this type of thing. I think a lot of people struggle in application or hiring processes because they're probably just making really basic mistakes, or not mistakes, but they're things that they could improve on that would change their destinies or change their success rate. So kind of give us your top tips for people who are looking to maybe enter tech specifically, but just more generally in the job hunt.
Okay. So I think in terms of the industry that you go into, don't shy away from any industry just because you feel like it may not look like you at the moment. You know, you may not see the diversity of the people in the organizations, but they do need you to join those organizations to start, you know, representing the wider community. So you might be that person that's going to, you know, really be a catalyst for that change in the organization. So if what they do and how the culture comes across is what you would like to, is where you see yourself, then apply, do it, and then just see how that goes. And then I think from the application stage, one thing I would definitely say is research the company, send a tailored CV to the company. The only reason I say that, because I know some people will just spam out a whole generic CV, is that as a recruiter, when I'm looking at CVs, I've got in mind the things that are in the job description, the things that I've spoken to the hiring manager about, and that's what I'm going to be looking for in your CV. So if I don't see that because you've just sent a generic CV to us, then I may figure out that you are somebody that we would want to talk to. But if there's another 10 people that have been very clear, they've gone through the job description, they've really pulled out their experience against what we're looking for, then that's going to make my job a lot easier to then be able to share their details with the hiring manager, have the discussion with them, and everything is transparent so we can move through the process. So I would say definitely tailor your CV as much as possible. And then as you go through the process, if you are then picked to interview, one thing I would say is bring your personality to the table. Bring who you are. Don't feel like you need to bring a certain person that you think the organization will want, because sometimes the organizations are looking for people that are not like them. Like, I've spoken to some of the hiring managers and they're so aware of the current culture in their team, they proactively look for someone who is not like the people in their team. Not because there's anything wrong, but just they need that diversity in thought, in everything. And so that is really, really important. So bring your authentic self to the table. Also do your research. You'll be surprised how many people still interview a company and don't have a clue what the company does, or if they're applying for a product, a role that they're going to be working closely with a product, and the product information is out there, even on a basic level, and they don't even do the research. So if you're that type of person, then you're going to let yourself down, period, at the interview. So you have to definitely research the company, research the product, even look at some of the things in the news lately. It can also guide you in, when the manager says, do you have any questions? Come with questions, because you'll always have questions. You'll always have questions. And so, be prepared to ask some questions. Then if you get through to panel stage, one thing I would say is prep. Once you've prepped what you're going to present at the panel, ask a friend to maybe go over it with you. Like, don't be shy to do a test run with somebody else, and also make sure that you practice your panel interview ahead of time as well, just so that you can pinpoint some of the key things that you really want to bring out in the panel. But definitely, asking for some advice from somebody else is really good. And then again, during the panel, it tends to be an opportunity for you to build a rapport with lots of people and to also find out a bit more about the organisation as well. Throughout the whole interview process, it's not just about putting your best foot forward for the organization. The organization is also putting their best foot forward for you. So if there's things that you're noticing at that point, ask the questions and let them clarify a bit more about the organization that you're potentially going to join if they offer you the role. And so, those are just a few quick top tips around sort of the interview process.
I love it. And the one I really want to flag for people is the one you said about practicing with a friend. I think one thing I realized, I did a course the other day, and a lot of the time when you prepare for interviews, the interview is the first time you've spoken aloud the things that you've prepared. And that is a big mistake. So I think, as you said, speak with a friend. But I think another piece of advice I've got is, if you don't have a friend or if you don't have anyone around you at the time when you're practicing, do it to your phone camera. So record yourself doing it and then watch it back, because just that act of saying it out loud will improve your kind of performance significantly. So
definitely, I agree.
Okay. It's been so interesting hearing your journey from fashion to pharmaceutical to tech. Tell us a bit about what's next for you, if you know.
That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure. Like, I definitely would like to stay in tech. I would like to drive the diversity agenda in organizations a lot more. I think that's something that's developed in the last sort of more 6 years of my career. And so it's an area that I'm super passionate about. I know at LinkedIn, for instance, it's currently like 3 key pillars: race, age, and gender. But that's also expands into other diversity areas as well. And so I definitely want to do more around that space. I definitely still want to stay within a talent acquisition capacity. I think we need more racially diverse people in talent acquisition. And I say that because talent acquisition is the real gatekeepers in organizations. They're the people that decide whether your application is going to get in front of the hiring manager.
Interesting.
And so, the more diverse the hiring team, the talent acquisition team, the more they're able to understand some of the nuances in how different people would present their application, how they would answer the questions in the interview process, just be a bit more culturally aware of the nuances as well, that someone might look at and think, oh, okay, that person's not suitable, but actually they are. You haven't been able to penetrate beyond what you're seeing at face value. So I definitely want to stay in the talent acquisition space and just make sure that we are represented, especially as a Black woman, and then just see where my career takes me, to be honest.
Cool. And I just have a quick kind of additional question in regards to, I think your career journey has kind of been really inspiring from the perspective of you pursued what you were passionate about. If something interested you, you went for it. And I think that's definitely the way to live life. My question in that regard would be, I think from some of the early stuff you described, you like kind of creativity, quite artistic and quite tactile, because the things you were doing, kind of fashion and things like that. So how do you incorporate that into your life now, whether it's kind of side projects or kind of social type things? I'd love to hear.
I'm still a very tactile person, so my friends and family enjoy lots of hugs and all of that. But other than that, like I still sew. Like I typically make outfits for like big occasions. If I'm going to it, I'll take the time out and make that. I was still doing people's hair for a long time. When I was at university, I worked at Selfridges in the holidays because I was back home. But whilst I was at uni, I worked for a few hair salons and just as a mobile hairdresser. And so I was still doing people's hair then, and I still do the odd person's hair now. But otherwise, I do my own hair. And so that still allows me to express my creativity through my hair, in terms of like the hairstyling stuff that I like to do. So yeah, like my passion hasn't died, but my career has just evolved in a different direction. And I think also sometimes there's a danger of things that you're really passionate about when you start pursuing them, because you then have to look at how you make money off it. And then for some people, it can almost detract them from doing that thing that they enjoy, and getting joy from it. So I'm glad actually that I still get to do it, and it's a side passion for me, for now anyway. We'll see what the future holds.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay, so it's just been so good speaking to you today. Thank you so much for joining us at a seat at the tech table and sharing your story with us. Yeah, just once again, thank you.
Yeah, it's been great speaking with you. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today and listening to this episode of A Seat at the Tech Table. You can connect with us on our social media platforms. Just search @SistersInTech on Twitter and Instagram, and check out our website www.sistersin.tech to see what we've got going on. Don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes, and we'll bring you the next episode soon.